The fluorescent lights above the diner buzzed like angry wasps, casting a sickly yellow glow over the cracked vinyl booths and scuffed linoleum floors. I could feel the ache in my feet radiating up through my calves, a dull throb that had become as familiar as my own heartbeat after another double shift. The smell of burnt coffee and grease hung thick in the air, clinging to my uniform, my hair, my skin. A perfume I could never quite wash away no matter how long I stood under the lukewarm spray of my apartment's broken shower. Table 7 needs a refill, sweetheart. Marge's voice cut through my exhaustion, sharp and nasal. She didn't look up from the register, her fingers punching numbers with practiced efficiency, her mouth working around a piece of gum that had probably been there since her shift started 6 hours ago. I nodded, reaching for the coffee pot with hands that trembled slightly. 23 years old, and I already felt ancient. The weight of my daughter's medical bills sat heavy in my purse, a stack of pink and white papers that grew thicker each week. Lily was only 4, too young to understand why Mommy couldn't afford the specialists, why we ate pasta 4 nights a week, why our apartment had water stains on the ceiling that looked like spreading bruises. The dinner rush had finally died down, leaving behind a battlefield of dirty plates and wadded napkins. Only a handful of customers remained scattered throughout the diner like forgotten chess pieces. I moved between tables mechanically, my body operating on autopilot while my mind tallied numbers: rent due in 5 days, electricity bill 2 weeks overdue, Lily's prescription running out. I was refilling the sugar dispensers when the air in the diner changed. It was subtle at first, like the pressure drop before a storm. The bell above the door chimed, and I glanced up out of habit, the polite smile already forming on my exhausted face. Then I froze. 3 men entered, but only one demanded attention. He moved with the kind of fluid grace that spoke of absolute confidence, of a man who had never questioned his right to occupy any space he chose. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. Even from across the room, I could see the quality of the fabric, the perfect tailoring that suggested custom work, Italian craftsmanship. But it was his face that made my breath catch. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, dark hair swept back from a forehead that spoke of intellect and calculation. His eyes, even at this distance I could feel their weight, were the color of aged whiskey, amber and dangerous. A thin scar traced its way from his left temple to his cheekbone, a white line that somehow only enhanced the brutal beauty of his features. The 2 men flanking him were clearly security. One positioned himself by the door, hand resting inside his jacket in a way that made my stomach clench. The other scanned the diner with eyes that missed nothing, cataloging exits, counting customers, assessing threats with military precision. They didn't belong here. This place was for truckers and third-shift nurses, for people counting quarters to afford pie and coffee. These men looked like they'd stepped out of a different world entirely, one of penthouses and private jets and power that didn't need to announce itself. The man in the charcoal suit slid into the corner booth, the one with the best view of both the entrance and the kitchen, I noticed. Strategic. His guards took positions where they could watch the entire diner, their bodies coiled with the kind of readiness that made my instincts scream danger. I forced my feet to move, forced my hands to stop shaking as I grabbed a menu and made my way toward his table. Up close, he was even more devastating. The scent of expensive cologne reached me first, something dark and woody with notes of bergamot and leather, so utterly different from the cheap body spray the other customers wore. His hands rested on the table, long fingers adorned with a single ring on his right hand, thick gold with some kind of crest I couldn't quite make out. "Good evening." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Can I get you something to drink while you look at the menu?" He didn't look at the menu. Instead, those whiskey eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made me feel stripped bare, exposed. His gaze traveled over my face slowly, deliberately, as if committing every feature to memory. I fought the urge to touch my hair, to smooth down my grease-stained uniform, to check if I had coffee splattered on my cheek. Coffee. His voice was deep, textured like smoke and honey, barely above a whisper, but it commanded attention in a way that shouting never could. Black. An accent lurked beneath his words. Something European, maybe Russian or Eastern European. It made my pulse quicken for reasons I didn't want to examine. Right away, I managed another smile, backing away from the table before I could do something stupid like stare. Marge caught my arm as I passed. "That's Lorenzo Vitale," she hissed, her eyes wide. "You don't know who that is?" I shook my head, unease crawling up my spine. "He owns half the city, honey. Real estate, import-export, construction." She lowered her voice to a whisper. "Word is he's connected. Like, really connected. Mafia connected." My blood ran cold. I glanced back at the booth where he sat, perfectly still, his attention now focused on his phone. The man by the door hadn't moved, hadn't blinked, a statue carved from violence and loyalty. "Why is he here?" I whispered back. Marge shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe he bought the building. He's been buying up properties in this neighborhood for months." She patted my arm. "Just keep your head down, do your job, and don't do anything stupid." Sound advice. If only I'd taken it. I poured the coffee with shaking hands, the dark liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. When I set it down in front of Lorenzo Vitale, I was careful not to let our fingers touch, maintaining that professional distance that suddenly felt crucial for my survival. "Are you ready to order, or do you need a few more minutes?" Professional, polite, invisible, the steak, rare. He still hadn't looked at the menu. His eyes remained fixed on me, and I felt like a butterfly pinned to velvet, beautiful and dying all at once. "And you are?" "Excuse me?" "Your name?" Not a question. A command wrapped in silk. "Emma?" I shouldn't have told him. I should have lied. But something about the way he asked made refusal feel impossible. "Emma." He repeated it slowly, tasting each syllable like wine. "You've been on your feet too long. Your left ankle is bothering you." I blinked, startled. How did you... "You favor your right leg, the way you shift your weight." His lips curved into something that might have been a smile on anyone else. On him, it looked predatory. "You should sit down before you collapse." "I'm fine." The lie tasted bitter. "I'll put your order in right away, Mr. Vitale." His eyebrow lifted slightly at my use of his name. Of course he noticed. Men like him noticed everything. The rest of his meal passed in a blur. I brought his steak, perfectly rare, blood pooling on the white plate. I refilled his coffee twice. Each time I approached the table, I felt his eyes on me, tracking my movements with an attention that made my skin prickle with awareness and fear in equal measure. Other customers came and went. The night shift began filtering in. But I remained hyper-aware of the man in the corner booth, of the power that radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Finally, he signaled for the check. I printed it out, my hands still trembling slightly, and placed it face down on the table. $37.45. A steak, 3 coffees, a side of fries he'd barely touched. "Thank you for dining with us." The words came automatically, part of the script I'd recited 1,000 times. "Have a wonderful evening." He picked up the check, his eyes scanning it briefly. Then he pulled out his phone, those long fingers moving across the screen with practiced ease. I turned to leave, to escape back to the safety of the kitchen and the comfortable poverty I understood. "Emma." I stopped, turned back. "You put your contact information on the receipt." It wasn't a question. Horror flooded through me. I grabbed the check back from his hand, my eyes scanning the bottom where I'd scrawled, "Oh God," my number. My personal cell phone number that I kept for emergencies, for Lily's daycare, for the hospital. "I'm so sorry." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I was supposed to send this to table 12. They asked for the check to be texted to them, and I must have grabbed the wrong order slip and..." I was babbling now, panic making me stupid. "I'll print you a new one right away." "I'm so sorry. This has never happened before. Keep it." He stood, unfolding to his full height, and I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. He was easily 6'3", maybe 6'4", and up close I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the tiny flecks of gold in those amber eyes, the number. "I'll keep it." "Mr. Vitale, I really didn't mean..." "I know." He reached into his jacket. I flinched before I could stop myself, and pulled out a wallet made of leather so soft it looked like butter. He extracted several bills, folding them neatly before placing them on the table. "For your excellent service." Then he was walking away, his guards falling into formation around him like well-trained dogs. The bell above the door chimed their exit, and I released a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Marge materialized at my elbow. "Holy shit, Emma, did he just—" I looked down at the money on the table. My vision went white at the edges. They weren't 20s. They weren't even hundreds. 5 bills. Each one marked with a number that made my brain short-circuit. $10,000 each. $50,000 left on a $37 check. Oh my God. My legs went weak. I grabbed the edge of the booth for support. Oh my God, this can't be real. Marge snatched up one of the bills, holding it up to the light. It's real. Jesus Christ, Emma, it's real. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out. An unknown number. A text message that made my heart stop. The rest is being transferred to your account. Consider it a tip for your excellent service. Don't refuse it. Your daughter needs medication, and your landlord needs to learn patience. This is not a loan. It's a gift. The only thing I ask in return is that you save this number. I'll be in touch. LV. Before I could process what I was reading, my banking app notification pinged. Deposit received $950,000. I couldn't breathe. The diner spun around me, the fluorescent lights blurring into streaks of nauseous yellow. My phone clattered to the table as my knees buckled. Emma? Emma. Marge's voice seemed to come from very far away. $1 million. A Mafia boss had just given me $1 million. And he had my number. And he knew about Lily. And somehow, as I slid toward the floor, the last thing I thought before darkness claimed me was how his cologne had smelled like danger and deliverance all at once, and how terribly, desperately afraid I was that I'd already fallen into a trap I didn't even know had been set. I woke up in the break room, lying on the sagging couch that smelled like cigarettes and desperation. Marge hovered over me, her face creased with worry, a damp paper towel pressed against my forehead. There you are, she breathed, relief flooding her features. You scared the hell out of me, girl. I thought you were having a stroke or something. Reality crashed back in waves, the money, the text message, Lorenzo Vitale's amber eyes burning into mine. I sat up too quickly, my head spinning. My phone, where's my phone? Right here. Marge handed it to me, her expression troubled. Emma, what the hell is going on? That money, I don't know. My fingers trembled as I unlocked the screen, half hoping, half praying that the message had been a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and hunger. But there it was, stark and real in black text. And below it, my banking app still showing a balance that made my vision blur. $950,000. I'd never seen so many zeros attached to my name in my entire life. You need to call the police, Marge said firmly. This isn't normal, Emma. Men like that don't just give away money. There's always a price. He said it was a gift. Even as I spoke the words, I knew how ridiculous they sounded. He said the only thing he wanted was for me to save his number. And you believe that? Marge's laugh was harsh. Honey, I've been working in this city for 30 years. I've seen girls like you get chewed up and spit out by men like him. They don't do anything without expecting something in return. I knew she was right. Every rational cell in my brain screamed that this was wrong. Dangerous. Impossible. But then I thought about Lily, about the appointment with the specialist I'd been forced to cancel last month, because I couldn't afford the copay. About the eviction notice I'd hidden in my underwear drawer, because looking at it made me physically ill. About the choices I'd been facing. Which bill to pay. Which one to let slide. Playing financial Russian roulette every single week. I need to go home. I stood on shaking legs, grabbing my purse from the locker. I need to see Lily. Emma. I'll figure it out tomorrow. I was already moving toward the door, my mind spinning with possibilities and terrors in equal measure. I need to think. The night air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp with the promise of November rain. I walked the 6 blocks to my apartment building in a daze, barely registering the familiar landmarks. The bodega with the broken sign, the laundromat where Mrs. Chen sat in the window at all hours, the alley where teenagers congregated to smoke and posture. My apartment was on the 4th floor of a building that should have been condemned years ago. The elevator hadn't worked since I moved in 18 months ago, so I climbed the stairs automatically, my feet finding the steps worn smooth by decades of use. The hallway smelled like boiled cabbage and cat urine, familiar and depressing. Mrs. Rodriguez opened her door as I passed, Lily's small hand clasped in her wrinkled one. "Mama!" My daughter launched herself at me, all wild curls and gap-toothed smile, and I caught her, burying my face in her hair. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and the chocolate milk Mrs. Rodriguez always gave her despite my protests. "Hey, baby girl." I held her tight, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "Were you good for Mrs. Rodriguez?" "She's always good." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled, but I could see the concern in her dark eyes. She'd been babysitting Lily for almost nothing since I started at the diner, a kindness I could never repay. "You look pale, mija. Are you feeling okay?" "Just tired." Another lie to add to the growing collection. "Thank you so much for watching her. Anytime, you know that." She hesitated. "Emma, if you ever need anything." "I know. Thank you." Inside our apartment, Lily chattered about her day while I went through the motions of our bedtime routine. Bath in a tub with chipped porcelain and questionable water pressure. Pajamas with cartoon characters, already too small but still wearable for a few more weeks. A story from the library book we'd read so many times I had it memorized. "Mama, why are you crying?" Lily's small hand touched my cheek, coming away wet. "I'm not crying, baby. Just tired eyes." I kissed her forehead, breathing in the scent of her, this small, perfect human who depended on me for everything. "Go to sleep now. Sweet dreams." "Sweet dreams, Mama." I waited until her breathing evened out, until I was sure she was deeply asleep, before I allowed myself to fall apart. Sitting on my sagging couch in the dark, I pulled out my phone and stared at the message again. At the number that shouldn't exist in my contacts, but now felt burned into my retinas. "Don't refuse it. Your daughter needs medication." How did he know? How could he possibly know about Lily's condition? About the prescriptions? About any of it? We'd been at that table for maybe 15 minutes total. I'd barely spoken to him beyond taking his order. Unless he'd had me investigated. The thought sent ice through my veins. How long had he been watching me? What else did he know? My phone buzzed and I nearly dropped it. Another message from the same number. "You're afraid. That's wise. But you don't need to be. The money is yours. No conditions, no expectations. Use it to take care of your daughter. That's all I want. Sleep well, Emma." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Every instinct screamed that I should report this, give the money back, change my number and disappear. But even as I thought it, I knew I wouldn't. Because tomorrow I could call the specialist. Tomorrow, I could pay off every bill, every debt, every crushing weight that had been suffocating me since Lily was born. Tomorrow, I could give my daughter the life she deserved. I was still staring at my phone when I finally fell asleep, curled up on the couch with my work uniform still on, dreaming of amber eyes and the scent of expensive cologne. The next morning, I called in sick to the diner. Marge didn't question it, just told me to take care of myself and hung up quickly, probably afraid I'd drag her into whatever mess I'd gotten myself into. I spent 3 hours on the phone with the bank, convinced they'd tell me it was a mistake, that the money would disappear as quickly as it had appeared. But the manager's voice had been respectful, almost reverent, when he confirmed the transfer was legitimate and the funds were available immediately. "The transfer came from a private account," he'd explained. "Everything appears to be in order, Ms. Reeves. Would you like to speak with one of our financial advisors about managing these funds?" I'd made an appointment, feeling surreal and detached, like I was watching someone else's life unfold on a movie screen. By noon, I'd scheduled Lily's appointment with the specialist. The receptionist, who'd been condescending and dismissive when I'd called before, suddenly became warm and accommodating when I said I could pay out of pocket. Money changed everything. I'd always known that intellectually, but now I felt it in my bones, the shift in power, the way doors opened when you could afford to knock. I should have felt relieved, grateful. Instead, I felt terrified. Because nothing was free. I knew that, and Lorenzo Vitale hadn't given me $1 million out of the goodness of his heart. Men like him didn't have hearts. Not in any way that mattered to people like me, so I waited for the other shoe to drop. It took 3 days. 3 days of quiet, of no messages, no contact. 3 days where I started to believe that maybe, impossibly, he'd meant what he said, that it really was a gift with no strings attached. Then, on Thursday afternoon, as I was walking Lily home from her new preschool, the good one, the one with the art program, and the organic lunches that I could suddenly afford, a black Mercedes pulled up alongside us. The rear window rolled down with a whisper of expensive machinery. Lorenzo Vitale looked at me from the back seat, and my world tilted on its axis all over again. Emma. My name in his mouth sounded like a prayer and a threat. Get in the car, please. Lily's hand tightened in mine. She was staring at the car with wide eyes, probably because it was the fanciest vehicle she'd ever seen up close. I don't think that's a good idea, I managed, my voice steadier than my racing heart. It wasn't a request. His eyes flicked to Lily, and something softened in his expression. Barely perceptible, but there. But I'm asking anyway. We need to talk. 5 minutes. Your daughter can come too. My driver has candy. As if on cue, the driver, the same stone-faced man who'd stood guard in the diner, turned around and held up a lollipop, his expression completely neutral. Every maternal instinct screamed at me to run. But Lily was already tugging on my hand, her eyes fixed on the candy, and I knew that refusing would only delay the inevitable. Lorenzo Vitale had found me once. He could find me again. 5 minutes, I said firmly. The door opened from the inside. I lifted Lily in first, settling her on the leather seat that probably cost more than my entire apartment's furnishings combined, then slid in beside her, keeping her on the side away from Lorenzo. The door closed with a heavy, final sound. We were moving before I could change my mind. The interior of the car smelled like leather, and that same cologne that had haunted my dreams for 3 nights. Lorenzo sat across from us, perfectly composed in another immaculate suit, navy this time, with a silver tie that caught the light. A laptop was open on the seat beside him, documents I couldn't read scattered across his lap. He was working. He'd been working when he'd spotted us. The realization should have made him seem more human. Instead, it just emphasized the vast gulf between our worlds. Mr. Vitale, I started. Lorenzo. He closed the laptop with a soft click, giving me his full attention. Those amber eyes moved over my face like a physical touch. Please. Lorenzo, then. The name felt too intimate on my tongue. What do you want? To ensure you're using the money wisely. He leaned back, one arm draped casually across the back of the seat, but I could see the coiled tension in his shoulders, the readiness of a predator at rest. Have you taken your daughter to the specialist? Lily was absorbed in her lollipop, swinging her feet and looking out the window at the city passing by in a blur of color and motion, oblivious to the danger sitting 3 feet away from her. Her appointment is next week. I kept my voice low. How did you know about her condition? About any of it? A slight smile touched his lips. I know everything, Emma. It's how I've survived in my world for this long. He pulled out a tablet, tapping the screen a few times before turning it toward me. Lily Ann Reeves, born 4 years ago with a congenital heart defect, requires regular monitoring and medication. Her father, his voice took on a harder edge, Marcus Chen, currently incarcerated for armed robbery. He stole from the wrong people and paid the price. My blood turned to ice. You know Marcus? I know of him. Lorenzo's expression was unreadable. He and his partner robbed one of my warehouses 2 years ago, took merchandise worth $500,000. His partner was smarter. He disappeared, probably left the country. Marcus was arrogant. He stayed. Spent the money on drugs and gambling. When my people found him, he had nothing left to return. I didn't know. The words came out as a whisper. I left him when I found out I was pregnant. I haven't seen him since. I know that too. Lorenzo set the tablet aside. You've never visited him in prison? Never tried to contact him? You've raised your daughter alone, working yourself into exhaustion to provide for her? You're a good mother, Emma. That's rare these days. There was something in his voice, some shadow of old pain that I didn't understand. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why do you care? Because Marcus owes me a debt. Lorenzo's eyes never left mine. $500,000 plus interest. He'll never be able to repay it, not in his lifetime. But you... He paused, and I saw something dangerous flicker across his face. You gave me your number by accident. A twist of fate. And when I looked into you, when I saw what you were struggling with, I saw an opportunity. An opportunity for what? My voice was barely audible. To collect what's owed in a different way. He leaned forward slightly, and I caught the full force of his presence, the power that rolled off him in waves. Marcus's debt is erased. In exchange, you belong to me now. The world seemed to stop. Even the hum of the car's engine faded into nothing, replaced by the roaring of blood in my ears. Excuse me? The word came out strangled, barely human. Lorenzo's expression didn't change. He sat there, perfectly calm, perfectly composed, as if he'd just commented on the weather, instead of claiming ownership of another human being. You heard me correctly. His voice remained soft, almost gentle. Marcus stole from me. The debt passes to his family, his daughter, and by extension to you. That's insane. I pulled Lily closer, my arm wrapping around her protectively, even though she was still happily occupied with her lollipop, oblivious to the nightmare unfolding around her. You can't just... People aren't property. This isn't the Dark Ages. No, it's not. He tilted his head slightly, studying me with those predator's eyes. It's much worse. In the Dark Ages, at least everyone understood the rules. Now we pretend civilization has made us better, kinder. But power still flows the same way it always has. From those who have it to those who don't. I'll go to the police. And tell them what? Lorenzo's smile was cold. That a stranger gave you $1 million? That I offered you a ride and had a conversation with you? I haven't threatened you, Emma. I haven't touched you. I've been nothing but generous. He leaned back again. His posture relaxed despite the tension crackling through the car. Besides, the police commissioner plays golf with me twice a month. The district attorney's daughter works in one of my legitimate businesses. The mayor owes me favors I haven't even called in yet. Who exactly do you think they'll believe? The truth of his words hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so stupid, so naive. There was no such thing as free money. There never had been. What do you want from me? I whispered, my mind racing through horrific possibilities. I'd heard stories, whispered rumors about what men like him did to women. Trafficking, exploitation. Things I couldn't even allow myself to fully imagine with my daughter sitting right here. Lorenzo's expression shifted, something almost like offense flickering across his features. I'm not a monster, Emma. Whatever you're thinking, stop. I don't hurt women. I don't force them into things they don't want. That's not who I am. Then what? I want you to work for me. He said it simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. As my personal assistant, you'll manage my schedule, handle certain communications, accompany me to events that require a softer presence. Nothing illegal, nothing immoral, just your time and your discretion. I stared at him, trying to find the trap hidden in his words. That's it? You gave me $1 million so I'd work as your secretary? Assistant, he corrected. And yes, that's it. I don't believe you. I don't particularly care if you believe me or not. His voice took on an edge of steel beneath the silk. The money is already yours. Consider it an advance on your salary. You'll make an additional $50,000 a month for as long as you work for me. Your daughter's medical expenses will be covered completely. Your housing situation will be upgraded. And in exchange, you give me your loyalty, your time, and your absolute discretion about anything you see or hear while in my employment. $50,000 a month. My brain couldn't even process that number. I currently made less than that in an entire year. And if I refuse, I had to ask, even though I already knew the answer. Lorenzo's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then you keep the $1 million. Consider it a gift. But Marcus's debt remains unpaid. And debts in my world have a way of coming due in unpleasant ways. I can't control what my associates might do if they discover he has a daughter. a beautiful daughter with a sick child of her own. The world is full of dangers, Emma. It would be such a shame if something happened because you weren't under my protection. There it was. The velvet glove removed to reveal the iron fist beneath. That's a threat. It's a reality. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then set it aside. I'm offering you a choice. Work for me willingly, with all the benefits that entails. Or refuse, and take your chances with a world that's much crueler than I am. I'm not the villain here, Emma. I'm the only thing standing between you and people who would use you up and throw you away without a second thought. You're using me right now, I said bitterly. I'm employing you. There's a difference. His eyes softened slightly. I could have taken you the moment I saw you in that diner. I could have had my men drag you into this car, threaten your daughter, destroy your life. But I didn't. I gave you money first. I'm asking for your consent. That might not seem like much to you. But in my world, it's everything. Lily tugged on my sleeve. Mama, are we going home soon? I'm hungry. The sound of her voice, so innocent and trusting, shattered something inside me. She didn't understand that our lives had just been bought and sold, that her mother had become a pawn in a game played by monsters in expensive suits. But she was healthy. Or she would be, once we saw the specialist. And she was safe, for now, because I was being given a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. What kind of events would I need to accompany you to? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. Lorenzo's expression shifted into something that might have been approval. Charity galas, business dinners, occasions where having a beautiful woman on my arm makes me appear more civilized. You'll smile, make small talk, and remember everything you hear, nothing more. And if someone tries to, if they expect, if any man touches you without your permission, I'll remove his hands. Said so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that I didn't doubt for a second he meant it literally. You're under my protection now, Emma. That means something. No one will dare disrespect what's mine. What's mine? The words should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange flutter in my stomach, something dangerous and unwelcome. I need time to think, I tried. You have until we reach your building. Lorenzo glanced out the window, which should be in approximately 2 minutes. That's not enough time. It's all the time there is. His eyes locked onto mine, and I felt pinned, trapped, caught in the gravity of his will. Decide, Emma. Safety and security for you and your daughter, or the uncertainty of a world where you're on your own. Choose. I looked down at Lily, at her curls escaping from her ponytail, at the chocolate stain on her shirt from breakfast, at the worn sneakers that I'd been planning to replace as soon as I could afford it. I thought about the specialist appointment, about the medication she needed, about the life she deserved. And I thought about Marcus, rotting in a cell somewhere, his debts becoming my chains. I'll do it, I whispered. I'll work for you. Lorenzo nodded, as if he'd never doubted my answer. Smart girl. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. This is the address where you'll report tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Don't be late. My driver will pick you up at 8:30. Tomorrow. But you have nothing more important than this. His tone brooked no argument. Quit your job at the diner. I'll have someone handle it. Your daughter's preschool has been contacted. They've been informed you'll be working irregular hours and have authorized Mrs. Rodriguez as an additional pickup person. She'll be compensated generously for her flexibility. Horror crept through me. You already did all of this before I even agreed. I don't leave things to chance, Emma. It's why I'm still alive. The car slowed, pulling up in front of my building. Lorenzo's driver appeared at the door, opening it with practiced efficiency. One more thing. I paused, Lily already climbing out, eager to escape the confining space. Don't run. Lorenzo's voice was soft, but the warning was clear. Don't try to disappear. Don't do anything foolish. I've invested in you now, and I protect my investments. But if you betray me, if you try to take my money and vanish... He let the sentence hang, unfinished but absolutely clear. Do we understand each other? Yes. The word tasted like ashes. Good. His expression softened marginally. This doesn't have to be a punishment, Emma. Work hard, stay loyal, and you might find this arrangement has benefits you haven't considered. I take care of what's mine." Then the door was closing, and the Mercedes was pulling away, leaving me standing on the cracked sidewalk with my daughter's hand in mine, and the feeling that I'd just signed my soul away in exchange for survival. That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat at my laptop and researched Lorenzo Vitale. What I found made my blood run cold. He was everywhere and nowhere. Legitimate businesses, real estate development, import-export companies, construction firms, all perfectly legal on the surface. But underneath, in the spaces between the official records, there were rumors, whispers, stories that newspapers wouldn't print and witnesses wouldn't confirm. His family had ties to organized crime going back 3 generations. His grandfather had built an empire on bootlegging during Prohibition. His father had expanded into gambling, loan sharking, protection rackets, and Lorenzo had taken it all and made it almost respectable, laundering money through legitimate enterprises while maintaining iron control over the city's underworld. There were no arrest records, no convictions. He was untouchable, and I had just agreed to work for him. I found one photograph from a charity event 6 months ago. Lorenzo in a tuxedo, standing next to a woman in a red dress. Tall, blonde, model beautiful. The caption identified her as Katerina Volkov, daughter of a Russian oligarch. They looked perfect together, like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. I wondered what had happened to her, if she'd also been given a choice that wasn't really a choice, if she'd lasted long enough to figure out the rules of his world before it chewed her up. My phone buzzed. Another message from Lorenzo's number. "Stop researching me. You won't find anything useful, and you're only going to scare yourself. Get some sleep. Tomorrow begins your new life. I'll see you at 9. LV." I stared at the screen, then slowly turned my laptop around, looking at the small camera embedded at the top of the screen. Another message came through immediately. "I'm not watching you through your computer, Emma. But my building has eyes everywhere, and someone reported seeing lights on in your apartment at an unusual hour. I pay attention. Now go to bed." I slammed the laptop shut, my hands shaking. He wasn't just powerful, he was omnipresent. He knew where I was, what I was doing, probably what I was thinking. But as I lay in bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling, I couldn't shake the memory of how he'd looked at Lily. Not with the calculating coldness he showed me, but with something almost like longing, like pain. "You're a good mother, Emma. That's rare these days." What had happened to make a man like Lorenzo Vitale value motherhood? What had been taken from him to create such hunger in his eyes when he looked at my daughter? I fell asleep with those questions unanswered, and dreamed of amber eyes and gilded cages, of choices that weren't choices and debts that could never be fully paid. The car arrived at 8:30 exactly. I dressed in the best outfit I owned. A simple black dress I'd worn to my father's funeral 3 years ago, paired with the only heels I possessed that weren't scuffed beyond recognition. I'd swept my hair into a bun, applied minimal makeup, and tried to look professional despite the terror churning in my stomach. Lily was already at preschool. Mrs. Rodriguez had picked her up at 7:30, clucking over the generous benefactor who'd quadrupled her babysitting rate. She hadn't asked questions, just squeezed my hand and told me to be careful. If only I could. The driver said nothing as we navigated through morning traffic. I watched the city change around us, moving from my neighborhood of pawn shops and check-cashing places into areas where the buildings grew taller, cleaner, more imposing. Glass and steel reaching toward the sky, monuments to wealth and power. We pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that dominated the skyline. The elevator required a keycard to access. The driver handed me one without a word. "Penthouse," he said, his first words to me. His voice was surprisingly soft, accented, Russian, maybe. "Mr. Vitale is expecting you." The elevator ride felt like ascending to heaven or descending to hell. I wasn't sure which. The numbers climbed higher and higher until they stopped at a floor marked simply PH. The doors opened directly into an apartment that redefined every concept of luxury I'd ever had. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Marble floors gleamed under modern chandeliers. Furniture that probably cost more than my yearly salary was arranged in perfect aesthetic harmony. Art on the walls, real art, the kind you saw in museums, added splashes of color to the monochromatic elegance. And standing by the windows, backlit by the morning sun, was Lorenzo Vitale. He turned as I entered, and I was struck again by how devastatingly beautiful he was. Today he wore charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, his dark hair swept back from his face. The scar on his cheek caught the light, a reminder of violence lurking beneath all this civilized veneer. Emma. He crossed the space between us with that fluid, predatory grace. You're exactly on time. Good. I value punctuality. I didn't have much choice, did I? The words escaped before I could stop them. A slight smile touched his lips. No. But you could have been difficult about it. The fact that you weren't tells me you understand the reality of our arrangement. He gestured toward a door off the main living space. Your office is through there. You'll find everything you need. Computer, phone, files on my upcoming schedule. My previous assistant left detailed notes on protocols and expectations. What happened to her? I had to ask. Lorenzo's expression darkened. She forgot that discretion was part of her job description. She tried to sell information to a rival. She won't make that mistake again. The casual way he said it, the absolute certainty, made my skin crawl. Did you kill her? No, I'm not a savage, Emma. He moved to a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into crystal tumblers. But she's currently working in one of my factories in Romania, and she'll stay there until she's learned her lesson about loyalty. She's alive, employed, and safe. Just relocated. He offered me one of the glasses. I took it because refusing seemed dangerous. I don't drink during work hours, I said. Consider it medicine for your nerves. He raised his glass in a mock toast. To our partnership, Emma. May it be long and mutually beneficial. I didn't drink, just held the glass, feeling the weight of cut crystal, breathing in the scent of expensive scotch. Lorenzo watched me, amusement flickering in those amber eyes. You're afraid of me? Yes. Good. Fear means respect. Respect means you'll be careful. He set his glass down, moving closer, and I fought the urge to step back. But I don't want you terrified, Emma. Terror makes people stupid, and I need you smart. So let me be clear about something. He was close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, count the gold flecks in his eyes. I will never hurt you or your daughter. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I will never force you into my bed. I will never ask you to do anything that violates your moral code. All I want is your time, your efficiency, and your loyalty. Can you give me that? I should have said yes immediately. Should have agreed and stepped back and maintained professional distance. Instead, I heard myself ask, why me? Lorenzo's expression shifted into something complex, something almost vulnerable. Because when you looked at me in that diner, you didn't see a monster. You saw a man, a customer. Someone worthy of basic human kindness despite your exhaustion and fear. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Everyone either wants something from me or wants me dead. But you just wanted to serve me coffee and move on with your day. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched my cheek with the back of his fingers. The contact sent electricity through me, unwelcome and undeniable. You're real, Emma. In a world full of masks and manipulation, you're genuine. And He paused, something painful flickering across his face. I need something real in my life, even if I have to buy it. Then he stepped back, the moment breaking like shattered glass. Your first task is to review my schedule for the next month and flag anything that seems unusual or requires special preparation. We have a gala on Saturday. You'll accompany me. I've arranged for appropriate clothing to be delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Any questions? I had 1,000 questions, but I only asked one. Can I call my daughter during my lunch break? Something in Lorenzo's expression softened. You can call her whenever you want. Family comes first, Emma. Always. That's something we agree on. And as I walked into my new office, my new life, my new cage, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lorenzo Vitale was far more dangerous than any monster could ever be. Because monsters, at least, were easy to hate. The first week passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Lorenzo's schedule was a masterclass in compartmentalization. Legitimate business meetings scheduled back-to-back with appointments that were clearly anything but legal, though nothing was ever explicitly stated. I learned to read between the lines, to understand that warehouse inspection meant collecting payments from operations I didn't want to know about, and investor meeting often involved men with thick accents and thicker criminal records. I kept my head down and my mouth shut. The gala arrived faster than I wanted. The dress that had been delivered to my apartment was a work of art, deep emerald silk that hugged my curves before flowing to the floor, with a neckline that was tasteful but undeniably sensual, shoes that actually fit, unlike anything I'd ever owned, jewelry that I was terrified to wear because the diamond earrings alone probably cost more than my previous annual salary. Mrs. Rodriguez had gasped when she saw me. "Mija, you look like a princess." I felt like a fraud. Lorenzo's driver picked me up at 7. The same stone-faced man who never spoke unless absolutely necessary. We drove to the penthouse where Lorenzo was waiting, and when I stepped out of the elevator, I found him standing by the windows in a tuxedo that made him look like sin incarnated. He turned, and something flickered in his eyes when he saw me. Something hot and dangerous that made my breath catch. "You're beautiful." Not a compliment. A statement of fact, delivered with the same certainty he used for everything else. "Thank you." I smoothed my hands over the dress nervously. "I've never worn anything like this before." "I know." He crossed to me, and I noticed he was carrying a flat box. "One more thing." He opened it to reveal a necklace that made my vision blur. Emeralds and diamonds arranged in an intricate pattern, the kind of piece you saw in museum exhibitions about royal jewels. "I can't wear that," I breathed. "If I lose it, you won't." He moved behind me, and I felt his fingers brush against my neck as he fastened the clasp. His touch was gentle, reverent almost, and I hated how my body responded to it. "And even if you did, it's insured. Stop worrying." "Easy for you to say. You're not wearing a small fortune around your neck." His laugh was soft, unexpected. "No, I just carry it in my pocket." He stepped back, studying me with those predator's eyes. "Perfect. You'll outshine every woman there." "The goal is for people to remember that I was there with you, and to wonder who you are. Mystery creates interest. Interest creates opportunities." He offered his arm. "Ready?" No. I would never be ready for this, but I took his arm anyway, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric, and let him lead me to the elevator. The gala was held in a hotel ballroom that dripped with old money and new power, chandeliers that could have illuminated a small city, ice sculptures, a string quartet playing classical pieces I half recognized from movies, and people, hundreds of them, all dressed in clothes that cost more than cars, all speaking in the coded language of the wealthy and influential. Lorenzo kept me close, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back as we navigated through the crowd. People parted for him like water around a shark, their smiles bright and their eyes calculating. I was introduced to politicians, business moguls, socialites whose names I recognized from gossip columns, and through it all, I played my part, smiled, made small talk about nothing, let Lorenzo's hand remain on my back, a constant reminder of who I belonged to in this world. "You're doing well," he murmured during a brief moment alone. "Better than I expected." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "I know, but you hide it perfectly." His thumb traced small circles against my spine, and I wasn't sure if he knew he was doing it. "The woman in red by the bar, Katerina Volkov, my former associate, she's been watching you all evening." I glanced over and found cold blue eyes fixed on me with undisguised hatred. "Should I be worried?" "Not while you're with me." Lorenzo's hand tightened slightly. "But don't ever be alone with her. Katerina doesn't handle rejection well." Before I could ask what that meant, a man approached. Tall, silver-haired, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Lorenzo. Still collecting beautiful things, I see. His gaze raked over me in a way that made my skin crawl. "Marcus." Lorenzo's voice went cold. I thought you'd learn to keep your eyes to yourself after our last conversation. The man, Marcus, but not my Marcus, thank God, raised his hands in mock surrender. Just admiring your taste, though I have to wonder where you found this one. She doesn't look like your usual type. That's because she's real. Lorenzo pulled me closer. Something you wouldn't recognize if it slapped you. The tension between them crackled like lightning. I felt like a deer caught between two predators, trying to decide which one would kill me first. We should dance, I said suddenly, desperately. The music is lovely. Lorenzo's attention snapped to me, surprise flickering across his features. Then something like gratitude. Of course. He led me to the dance floor, pulling me into his arms with a possessiveness that should have frightened me, but instead felt oddly safe. His hand splayed across my lower back, the other clasping mine, and we moved together to a waltz I didn't know, but somehow followed anyway. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For preventing me from putting Marcus through that window. I've been wanting to do it for years, but it would have been bad for business. His eyes met mine, and I saw something raw in them. You're good at this. Reading situations, knowing when to intervene. I worked in a diner for 3 years. You learn to read people when your tips depend on it. A real smile touched his lips, the first genuine one I'd seen. Smart and practical, I chose well. We danced in silence for a moment, and I became acutely aware of how close we were, of the heat of his body against mine, of the way his cologne made my head spin. Why did you really choose me? I asked. The truth this time. Lorenzo's expression shifted, becoming vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. Because you reminded me of someone I lost a long time ago. Who? My sister. The words were barely audible. She was kind like you. Genuine. She saw good in people even when they didn't deserve it, and it got her killed. My heart clenched. Lorenzo. She was caught in crossfire. Wrong place. Wrong time. She was 23. Had a daughter. 3 years old. His grip tightened on me. I couldn't save her. Couldn't protect her. But when I saw you with Lily, struggling and exhausted but still fighting, I thought maybe I could do for you what I failed to do for her. Understanding crashed over me. This wasn't about debt or ownership. This was about redemption. About a man trying to save someone he'd already lost. I'm not your sister, I said gently. I know. His eyes met mine, and I saw the weight of years in them. But maybe you can be the second chance I don't deserve. The music ended. We stood there, still pressed together, the moment stretching into something dangerous and inevitable. Then his phone buzzed. The spell broke. Lorenzo checked it, his expression hardening. We need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Someone's moving against me tonight. They think I'm distracted. His hand found mine, gripping tight. Stay close to me. Don't let go for any reason. We moved through the crowd quickly, his security materializing from nowhere to flank us. I saw Katerina watching with a smile that promised violence, saw Marcus raising his glass in a mocking toast, and I realized that Lorenzo's world was even more dangerous than I'd understood. That being his meant being a target. The car was waiting. We climbed in, and I saw Lorenzo pull a gun from inside his jacket, sleek, black, utterly deadly. I'm sorry, he said, not looking at me. This isn't how tonight was supposed to end. But as we raced through dark streets toward an unknown destination, his hand found mine again, and I held on tight, realizing that somewhere in the past week, my fear of Lorenzo Vitale had transformed into something far more dangerous: trust. The penthouse was in lockdown when we arrived. Armed men I'd never seen before positioned at every entrance, their faces grim and professional. Lorenzo moved through them like a general inspecting troops, issuing orders in Italian too rapid for me to follow. I stood frozen in the center of the living room, still wearing the emerald dress, feeling utterly out of place. Emma. Lorenzo appeared at my elbow, the gun now holstered somewhere I couldn't see. I need you to go to the safe room. 3rd door on the left down that hallway. Code is Lily's birth date. Day, month, year. The fact that he knew my daughter's birth date by heart should have terrified me. Instead, it did something else entirely to my racing heart. What's happening? A rival family thought tonight would be a good time to make a move on my territory. They were wrong. His expression was carved from stone. "You'll be safe in the safe room. Stay there until I come get you. And if you don't come..." Something flickered in his eyes, surprised that I'd asked, maybe, or something softer. "Then my second-in-command, Victor, will get you out. You'll be taken care of. You and Lily both. I've made arrangements. Lorenzo." He kissed me. Fast, hard, desperate. His hand cupped the back of my head, fingers tangling in my carefully styled hair. And for a moment the world narrowed to just the taste of him, the heat of him, the absolute certainty of his mouth on mine. Then he pulled back, and his mask was firmly in place again. "Go. Now." I went. The safe room was exactly what it sounded like. Reinforced walls, monitors showing every angle of the building, enough supplies to survive a siege. I sank onto the leather couch, my legs finally giving out, and touched my lips where I could still feel the ghost of his kiss. This was insane. All of it. I'd gone from struggling waitress to Mafia mistress in less than 2 weeks, and somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being quite so terrified of the man who'd bought my loyalty. Hours crawled by. I watched the monitors, saw men moving with military precision through the building, saw Lorenzo in his office directing operations with cold efficiency. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. There was blood on his white shirt, not his, I prayed, and his hair was disheveled from running his hands through it. He looked like a king directing a war, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. My phone rang. "Mrs. Rodriguez. Mija, there are men outside your building. They say they're here to protect Lily. Did you..." "Yes." Relief flooded through me. Lorenzo had thought of everything. "They work for my employer. Let them do their job. Keep Lily inside and away from windows." "Emma, what have you gotten involved in?" "Something I can't get out of. But we're safe. I promise." I hoped I wasn't lying. Dawn was breaking when Lorenzo finally opened the safe room door. He looked exhausted, the blood on his shirt dried to rust brown, but alive. Whole. I launched myself at him without thinking, and he caught me, his arms coming around me with surprising gentleness. "It's over," he murmured into my hair. "You're safe. You're bleeding." I pulled back, seeing a cut above his eyebrow I hadn't noticed on the monitors. "It's nothing. The other guy looks worse, a ghost of a smile. Much worse." I should have been horrified, should have run screaming from this life of violence and danger. Instead, I found myself reaching up to touch his face, my fingers tracing the line of his scar. "Why did you kiss me?" Lorenzo's eyes darkened. "Because I wanted to, because I might not have gotten another chance. Because you've been driving me insane since the moment I saw you, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise." "This is a terrible idea," I whispered. "The worst." His hand came up to cover mine, pressing it against his cheek. "You should go. Take your daughter and disappear. I'll give you enough money to start over somewhere safe. You don't belong in this world, Emma. You're right. I don't." I met his eyes, seeing my own reflection in them. "But I'm choosing to stay anyway." "Why?" Because somewhere between fear and survival, I'd started to see the man beneath the monster. The one who remembered my daughter's birthday, who valued family above everything, who looked at me like I was something precious instead of disposable. "Because I think you need someone real in your life," I said. "And because maybe I need to learn that not all powerful men are like Marcus, that some of them actually keep their promises." Lorenzo kissed me again, slower this time, thorough. His hands framed my face like I was something fragile, something worth protecting, and I kissed him back, tasting danger and desire, and the beginning of something that would probably destroy us both. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I can't promise you safety. My world is violent and unpredictable. But I can promise you loyalty, protection. Everything I have, everything I am, will be devoted to keeping you and Lily safe. That's all I need." 3 months later, I stood in a different penthouse, the one Lorenzo had bought specifically for Lily and me. Spacious, secure, with a room decorated in princesses and rainbows where my daughter slept peacefully, her heart condition finally under control thanks to the best specialists money could buy. Lorenzo found me on the balcony, wrapping his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "She's asleep?" "Finally. She was asking about you again. When you're coming to read her a story." I felt him smile against my neck. "Tomorrow. I promised her we'd finish that book about dragons." This was my life now. Evenings spent in luxury, days managing the legitimate side of Lorenzo's empire while carefully ignoring the shadow business I'd never be fully part of. Dinners as a strange little family. The Mafia boss, the former waitress, and a 4-year-old girl who'd wrapped Lorenzo around her tiny finger within days. Marcus had been released from prison 2 weeks ago, his debt officially forgiven. He'd come looking for me once. Lorenzo's men had convinced him that was a mistake he shouldn't repeat. I didn't ask what they'd done. Some things were better left unknown. Katerina had tried to cause problems, spreading rumors, making threats. She'd been relocated to operations in Eastern Europe, permanently. "Do you regret it?" Lorenzo asked quietly. "Staying with me?" I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd bought my freedom by making me his. His face was softer now when he looked at me, the predator's edge dulled by something that looked dangerously like love. "Every day," I admitted. "And not at all." He kissed my forehead. That's the most honest thing anyone's ever said to me. We stood there as the city lights glittered below us, two people from different worlds who'd somehow found each other in the space between fear and trust, between survival and choice. I'd never be free of Lorenzo Vitale. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped wanting to be, because the cage he'd built around me had doors that locked from the inside, and I'd chosen to stay, not because I had to, but because love, I was learning, was its own kind of debt, and some debts were worth paying. Years later, when Lily asked how her mother met her stepfather, I told her a modified version of the truth, that a kind man had helped us when we needed it most. That sometimes fate brings people together in unexpected ways, that love doesn't always start with hearts and flowers. Sometimes it starts with fear and desperation and the choice to trust despite every reason not to. I never told her about the $1 million tip, about the debt her father owed, about the night I sold my freedom for her survival. Some stories are better left in the shadows where they belong. But when Lorenzo tucked her into bed each night, reading stories about princesses and dragons, his hand always found mine in the darkness. And I held on tight, grateful for the twist of fate that had sent a bill to the wrong contact and changed everything. Because in the end, it wasn't the money that saved me. It was the man who'd given it, expecting nothing, and somehow getting everything instead.